Welcome back to our course on PSE 15. In this section I'm going to look at catalogues, and in particular I'm going to look at the rather tricky question of whether you should have more than one catalogue or not, how to manage your catalogues, and how to convert catalogues from earlier versions of PSE. If you've used catalogues in an earlier version of PSE, you can probably skip this section. By default, with a new installation of PSE, you get one catalogue with the name of My Catalogue. And you may remember earlier on, if I just click on Help again and System Info, one of the things that you can see in the System Info dialog here is the name of the current catalogue, which is My Catalogue, the catalogue location, the catalogue size, and the catalogue cache size. Now don't worry about the cache size, just look at the catalogue size. The reason the size is so small, it's less than 1 megabyte, whereas each of those images is actually more than 1 megabyte in size, is that the images aren't actually stored in the catalogue. What we have in the catalogue is information about the images and the thumbnails that I mentioned earlier. One of the options that you have is to actually have more than one catalogue. And what I want to look at first in this section is how you decide whether you need more than one catalogue. Let me start by looking at the reasons that you might only have one catalogue. The first reason is that you can only have one catalogue open at a time. And the second reason, strongly related to the first one, is that if you want to search for images, you can only search on one catalogue at a time. If you want to make artifacts such as a slideshow, or you want to put together a photo book, then having the media that you want to use in that artifact in different catalogues, although there are ways that you can do that, it becomes really quite complicated. So having everything in one catalogue certainly makes the making of those types of artifact much more straightforward. Given those advantages of having just one catalogue, what are the reasons that you might choose to have more than one catalogue? First of all, you may want to separate images related to your work, perhaps, or a hobby that you have, from those that are related to home images, family party photos, that sort of thing. And indeed some of the media that you work with may be confidential, whereas others you definitely would want to share with other people. It's much more straightforward if you want to share some images, whereas some of them you want to keep confidential, to have them in separate catalogues. It may also be that the images and media in general are stored in different places. So for instance, at work you may have images stored on a company network, whereas at home you may have shared images with other members of the family. In that type of situation, it may also not be an issue, for example, not being able to search on both catalogues. And the same argument may apply to artifacts. So if you are in a situation where you really can achieve this kind of separation, and in fact this separation is advantageous, then having more than one catalogue may well be a good idea. During this course I'm certainly going to be using more than one catalogue, and in order to do that I'm going to be using the Catalogue Manager. There are a couple of standard ways of invoking the Catalogue Manager. One of them is to go up to the File menu. One of the options there is Manage Catalogues, and that brings up the Catalogue Manager dialog. Let me just cancel that for the moment. And down at the bottom right, you remember me pointing out to you earlier on this My Catalogue link. If I click on My Catalogue, that also brings up the Catalogue Manager dialog. Now take a moment to read that little panel there, but then look below it to the list of catalogues. And catalogues are in three categories. We have catalogues accessible by all users, that's all users of this device. Catalogues accessible by the current user, so that's me only logged into this device. And when I select that option, there are none. And also catalogues in a custom location. Now a custom location might be a network share, for example. When I create a catalogue, I'll create it in one of these three categories. And that determines how and whether both I and any other users of this device can access the catalogue. If, for example, various members of the family use the same PC, each of them may want their own catalogue, so you'd choose catalogues accessible by the current user. Whereas if you want all users of the device to be able to access the catalogue, you might choose the first option. Whereas if you want other people on other devices to access a location from those other devices. If you, for example, got a shared drive at home, you could choose a custom location for the catalogue. The first thing that I'm going to do is to move my catalogue, which is currently in a location accessible by all users, but I want to move it from the current C drive location onto my E drive. So first of all, let me create a custom location, select custom location, click on browse, and then from here I'm going to browse to a folder that I've created specifically for PSE 15 catalogues. There it is, click on OK. That is my custom location. Now I'm going to go back to catalogues accessible by all users. I'm going to select my catalogue and I'm going to click on move, and it lets me choose my custom location. Click on OK, and when I do that it will move the catalogue. Note it doesn't move the images themselves, only the catalogue. Click on OK. There you are, everything has now been moved. And as you can see, in the custom location category I have one catalogue, that's the one that's currently open. If I click now on catalogues accessible by all users, current user, I don't have any catalogues in either of those categories. Let me just return to my custom location. I don't particularly like the name My Catalogue. It's a default name. I'd rather give it a more personal name than that. And the sort of name I might use might be something like Toby Home or Toby Work. I'm going to call this one Toby New, so I select the catalogue. One of the options here is rename, and let me call it Toby New. Click on OK. The catalogue is renamed, and after it's been renamed you'll see that the name Toby New is the one shown now in the bottom right hand corner. Supposing I want a completely new catalogue. Let's suppose that I want a catalogue that is going to be accessible to all users on this device. I would select Catalogues Accessible by All Users as my catalogue option, click on New, and I get an option to create a new catalogue. Now in doing that I give my new catalogue a name. Bear in mind that it's going to be in a location accessible by all users of this device. There's a checkbox here. If I check that, I'll get that free music that you saw earlier on in the course. Once I've entered the file name and decided whether or not to check that checkbox, click on OK, and I'll have a new catalogue. So if you do want to create a second, third, fourth catalogue, etc., that's the option to use. There are two other options in this dialog to be aware of. Let me go to my Toby New catalogue. One of the things that can happen with catalogues over time is that they become rather inefficient. They've got a lot of unused space. Things get deleted, the space doesn't get reused efficiently. And one thing you can do from time to time, which will help to keep your catalogues in peak condition, is to optimize each catalogue. So I've selected Toby New. If I click on the optimize option, what will happen is that PSE will go through the catalogue and basically tidy it up, reuse any space that's currently unused as far as it can, and particularly with a large catalogue or one that's been used for a long time, this is a very good thing to do from time to time. So let me click on Optimize. The catalogue and thumbnail cache have been successfully optimized, and that's going to do my catalogue a lot of good. Another thing that sometimes happens is that you'll get a message from PSE saying that there's some kind of problem with the catalogue and you should perform a repair. Well, this is one of the locations where you can try a catalogue repair. So catalogue is there, click on repair. No errors were found. Even though no errors were found, there is an option there to repair anyway. On this occasion I'm just going to click on OK. Now let's look at one of the other options that we haven't looked at, which is a very important one for those of you who have used earlier versions of PSE, and that is Convert. You may remember earlier on that when I started up PSE 15 for the first time, we had an option of converting existing catalogues, and I said then that I would come back to conversion later on. Well, this is it. If you've used an earlier version of PSE on this device, then right back to PSE 12, I believe, PSE is able to recognize earlier catalogues and will convert them to the latest format if indeed you want them converted. You may leave an older version of PSE on the device and use the old catalogue with the old version if you want to. But in my case, I'm going to convert at least one of my old catalogues to the new format. Let me click on Convert. Now what I can see here is a list of catalogues, in each case with the relevant version of PSE indicated, and I can select a catalogue and convert it to the new format. Now there are two very important additional options. One of them here, show previously converted catalogues. Let me click on that, and it will include catalogues which have themselves been converted from earlier versions. And secondly, I can ask PSE to do a search to see if it can find any more catalogues. I'm browsing to this specific location. There's a folder there, Tobii General. I'm going to select that. And now in the list I've got Tobii General Elements 14 Organizer, and I'm going to convert that catalogue. My catalogue has been converted successfully. Click on OK. Click on Done. And I now have two catalogues in my custom location. Now although Tobii General is currently selected, it's not the current catalogue. You can see here Tobii New is the current catalogue. If I want to make Tobii General, the one that I've just converted, the current catalogue, I click on Open. And what you can see now is the contents of Tobii General. Now you'll notice that not all of the images have thumbnails, and this normally can indicate that a particular image has been moved. It's no longer in the location where the catalogue expects it to be. And we're going to look at fixing this kind of problem later on in the course. But for the moment, you can see Tobii General. You can also see that it's the catalogue that I'm working on at the moment. And it's very straightforward to switch back to Tobii New. Let me click on Tobii General to bring the catalogue manager back up again. Click on Tobii New, click on Open, and I'm back to Tobii New again. So that's it on catalogues for the moment. I'll come back to fixing one or two of those types of problem that we've seen here later on. But I suggest that at this point, if you can, you set up the catalogue or catalogues that you need, rename accordingly, separate out into two or more catalogues if you need to, and make sure that the catalogues are in the correct locations, because we are going to be capturing more images over the coming sections, and it's a lot easier to put them in the right place to begin with than to move them later on. That's it for this section. I'll see you in the next one.